Hello. We're all very happy to be here tonight. First of all, I'd like to introduce my boys. This is Chucko, and this is Buster, and this is Pete. I'm David Lynch, and this is Bob, and this is Dan. And we just wanted to get together and thank all of the people that have supported Eraserhead through the years, and particularly thank the New Art Theater for its support. The New Art was one of the first theaters to ever show Eraserhead. Also, the boys wanted me to wish you peace and happiness. And these guys aren't just a bunch of goofballs. They know that there's plenty of suffering in the world, and they spent many years with little iron hooks in their backs up on Sunset Boulevard. And but they tell me that there's this all-pervading happiness underneath everything. And the more time I spend with them, the more I believe it. And so we wish you peace and happiness, and long live Eraserhead. Thanks a million.
Welcome to Twin Peaks Unwrapped. I'm your host, Ben Durant, and beside me is...
Bryon Kazaska.
You know, it's almost the 40th anniversary of Eraserhead.
40th?
Yes, 40th. Where did the time go?
Oh, man, I feel so young.
March 19th, 1977 is when it was released.
Wow, that is crazy.
Yeah, so we got to get this show on the road. We've got a special guest. We should start talking to him and get on with Eraserhead. We're on the show with Jon Fairhurst. Hey, Jon.
Hello.
Why did we have you on the show? Tell us, what are you doing related to Eraserhead?
Interested in Eraserhead for years and years. And about a year ago, I unlocked a mystery. So I found some literary text that has literally scores of clues about the little details in Eraserhead, and ended up writing a graphic novel. So it's called The Key to Eraserhead. And in fact, it's going to be published on March 19th. Which just happens to be the 40th anniversary of the film. So,
awesome.
So that's coming up. And of course, midst of that, I did a ton of research on the film, as you can imagine.
I know, at least on Twitter, on Keys to Eraserhead, I think you've been doing daily samples of the graphic novel.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm releasing the first, I think it's 46 panels of the graphic novel. Started on February 1st, and so. So yeah, I show that on Twitter, and then it links to the website, which is Eraserhead.com, and you go there and you can see the whole sequence of panels. And the book is available for pre-order. I'm just doing it as an ebook, both on Kindle and through iBooks, and so it's available for pre-order now.
Cool. And how much is it going to cost?
$5.99.
Cool. Very nice.
So Ben kept it from me moments before calling you. He told me about your graphic novel, and my ears perked up, and I was like, really? Is it out? Can I get a copy?
Bryon loves comics, too. So.
I love graphic novels. And then I was like, is it going to be a physical copy? And Ben's like, well, I have something. And I'm like, he just told me moments ago.
Now, to be fair, Jon also said I should keep this for you. So it wasn't just me. It was Jon as well.
Sneaky, sneaky.
Bryon, I thought it would be awesome if you were here without knowing the background of the book.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that you just saw the movie for the first time recently.
Yep.
And so having your perspective of someone who's just seen the film, just trying to figure it out, I think is great.
I just watched it yesterday, so it's fresh in my mind. It blew my mind. I mean, I thought it was really awesome.
We were texting. It wasn't what you thought it was going to be.
No, it was nothing like I thought it was going to be. And I have to say, this is definitely in my top favorite Lynch films.
I feel like every time you see a Lynch film,
I know, it's so hard, right? They just get, but a part of me, this movie really made me wish we did watch these movies in order, because we just watched Lost Highway.
Right.
And now we watched one of his latest films, and then we're watching his very first film.
Right.
And I get to see this contrast of where he is to where he was, filmmaking wise.
But even though it's out of order, I think you can still see elements
Yes.
of where he was working with, and then where he was going 20 years
Yeah.
later.
The central themes kind of carry through these movies and even into Twin Peaks. And I even kind of saw some Twin Peaks in there. Just hints of things. You know, those little kernels of inspiration that would carry on through his career.
Right.
You can really see the foundation in this movie.
And John, do you remember when you first saw Eraserhead, or what your first impressions of it was?
Yeah, it would have been back in like 1981 or something like that. A friend of mine invited me over to his house, and he had the On TV, which was the scrambled TV channel in LA at the time. And he says, "You got to see this. It's about a guy with a deformed baby." And I'm thinking it's going to be a tearjerker about some guy with a down baby or something like this. But no, it's a little different than that.
Yeah. And I saw it in college, and it was probably like the 90s. It was on VHS, and it was, the format is wrong. So, it's being cut. Like, even when you see Eraserhead, the title at the beginning, it's being cut off. And
wow.
So it wasn't like the best format to watch it. And then I want to say it was 2002 on DavidLynch.com's website. He released the DVD for the first time, which I brought in.
Eraserhead 2000.
Right, so
that was back in the day when they threw the word they threw 2000 at the end of everything.
And they wanted to release it in 2000, but I think they weren't happy with it, and they had to then they redid it and cleaned it up again, and so it took them a little longer. But DavidLynch.com used to send like shoe boxes of.
That's cool.
It's kind of cool. I brought in the shoe box, but it was fun.
I got the Blu-ray, and it's beautiful. I mean, it comes with a booklet, has the making of in it, and it's really such an awesome piece to have.
Yeah, and the supplements have like all the stuff throughout the years. So some of the stuff that was on the previous DVD and other materials, they all kind of put it on there.
That's
so
cool.
It's a lot of good stuff.
One gem in those extras is when he actually goes to the AFI site, which I've visited. It's amazing to go there, and he's with Kathryn Coulson. So you get to hear her interviewed, as well as Charlotte Stewart is there.
Yeah, was that? I think that was Pretty as a Picture, the Pretty as a Picture documentary with Jack Nance and all of them. Yeah, that was great.
That's cool. I'll have to watch that.
Yeah, that's really something.
I actually want to ask both of you a question, since you guys kind of went in that direction. Might as well go now. This movie, it made me feel like a teenager again, and like I was watching something that was special. When I was younger, the first movie I saw that blew my mind, that was like, these movies exist, was Evil Dead. The first Evil Dead, a friend of mine said, you got to go rent it, because Army of Darkness had just come out in the theater. And I knew I like Bruce Campbell, and I didn't know, I looked cool. My friend's like, you go see Evil Dead, go rent it now, across the street, go. And I watched it, and I'm like, movies are like that? Like, people are making movies that are not the movies I go to the theater to see. This is, like, crazy. It made me dig into, like, I watched Evil Dead 1 and 2. Then I looked into Tim Burton's Ed Wood movie. Got me interested in Ed Wood. I saw his films. Then, like, Pi, Cube, Requiem for a Dream. Just weird stuff, and I loved it. Me and my friends would be... You feel like you're in a special club. You're like, nobody else knows about this. This is special. And this is what this movie made me feel. And I almost felt like this is what we're missing in today's cinema.
Yeah.
In the indie scene. I mean, there's an indie scene, but I feel like it's not as strong as it was. I mean, maybe it is, and maybe I'm just getting old and not paying attention anymore. But it did have that feeling, and I was wondering what movie... Was it this movie for you guys, or what movie that you saw that were like, oh my God, this blew my mind. This is not mainstream cinema. This is something else. There's something else out there.
Yeah. So for me, this was, the film, because seeing it back in the early 80s, I'd seen the Exorcist. And, so that was about the only other, like, off-the-edge movie that at that time. So, and this one was so far removed from that. And I think a key is that it doesn't spoon feed you. And those are the exact words that Lynch has used. He doesn't want to spoon feed you with and tell you why everything happens and what everybody's thinking. So you really, there's so much open-ended. It's something you think about. And for me, I thought about it for years afterwards, not just the next few days, but for years.
Well, see, the first thing that came to my head, I don't even think it's that weird or crazy, but I think about Trainspotting.
Yeah, there you go.
I just
That's
think
one.
about, like, was it a baby on the ceiling? And it was just, like,
Yeah,
really trippy and really
yeah.
crazy. And, like, to me, that was, like, but see, I'm thinking, like, in order of, like, my age. Like, I saw that in high school, I think. So,
It came on, yeah, when I was in high school, like,
yeah, so I would have been, maybe I was a senior and you were a freshman or something like that.
But I mean, that movie, it was against the norm. It was, you didn't make a movie about heroin addicts.
No.
And having a baby crawl on the ceiling was something out of the. You didn't see that.
And like,
all
wait,
the,
they
all
seemed like
time.
they were the heroes and stuff, and like they were.
Well,
like,
I mean, yeah, it's like a story about their lives, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I even think Fire Walk with Me was pretty out there. I think Lynch's films is pretty out there.
Yeah.
But,
and I'm jealous that you guys got to see this when it came out because I saw this. And I'm like, I wish I saw this.
I
when
didn't
I was
see
younger.
Eraserhead when it was out.
No, but I wish I saw this when I was younger. I know it came out in 77.
Yeah, I was
born in
2 years
79.
old.
Yeah. But I mean, I wish I was in high school that I knew someone
right.
that was into Lynch to point in that direction.
Right.
I mean, I had friends who were older than me that pointed me in the direction of these kinds of movies. I just didn't know that movie existed, and I kind of wish I did, because it did have it bring me back to that time period where I would just rent movies by myself and be like, go to school and guess what I just watched, you know?
Yeah.
People were like, what? And I'm like, it was so cool.
That's awesome. So, you usually have theories, Brian. Do you want to bring up any theories about this film? What is this film about?
Oh man, I can't wait to watch it again and again and have other people watch it, because it's just that kind of movie. My theory overall, I would have to say Henry is just this kind of schlubby guy. He gets this girl pregnant. He's having fear, fear of the unknown, fear of having a child, fear of just being a parent, maybe a dad. He doesn't know what to do, and he's just not ready for something like this. And his girlfriend there, Mary, she's a little off. The family, they're all off. But the family, you see the father, and you don't see you just see the mom and the grandma. And the father is just very, he's
excited about chicken.
We've got chicken tonight. Strangest damn things. They're man-made. Little damn things. Smaller than my fist. They're new.
But is that your life? Your life is like so bad. Like, you go to work, you're miserable. You come home, you're excited about chicken and little chickens.
That's the size of your hand.
Yes, and they bleed. And obviously, I think he saw the blood. That was just his.
Whatever.
Yeah, like I think that's his fear of like everything coming out in these illusions or whatever. And then
the fact that it's little chicken makes me think it's a baby chicken. If we're going with this,
the theme. You're right.
Baby,
you're right. Like, it's a premature, because it was a premature baby, right? And,
right.
So I think it's his fear. The baby, I don't know what you guys think, and I'm interested to know. I kind of feel like the baby, it was premature, it had problems, but I don't think it really looked it in real life. I don't think it was a alien baby. Personally, I think he almost projected this alien-like form on it, so he never became attached to it. It never became something he loved. He had this disdain, like it was always, for better or worse term, blocking him from having an affair in the beginning there.
Yes.
Crying, laughing, mocking him.
Now, we should all say that Brian does not have kids, and
I have kids.
3 kids.
Yes.
They're young kids. So I can definitely relate to the idea that you kind of lose your life when you have children.
Yeah, and that's where I think the name Eraserhead comes from, because I think when the big scene happens and his head goes into the blood and falls down and it goes to the factory, you become a dad or a mom. I would say mom or dad. Your identity is a lot different from when it was prior.
Right.
Your identity has now become this child.
And I want to give John a chance, but real quick, if you're doing that, near the end of the movie, Henry becomes the baby and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like he's
part of it.
So his whole life is the baby. And he's becoming the baby.
Yes.
And stuff. Like,
yes. Yeah. And so I just think it's him struggling with this. And Mary leaves, so he's stuck with this baby. He doesn't know what to do. He has no attachment to it. I think he's projecting this alien because it's like an alien. It's like he doesn't know how to care for it.
It is foreign.
It's foreign, yeah. And I think Ultimate kills it, and I think he kills himself. But the Radiator Woman, his overall fantasy, where he just escapes, and that's like I
In
think
heaven, everything is fine.
I love that song too. It's so haunting and so beautiful, and I think it sums up the whole movie, because in the end, he go to heaven and he's fine, right? I mean, I don't know. He's with his fantasy woman at the end, and the woman next door is sort of like a tangible. She's a hooker, or because she's.
Is she a hooker?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think so.
I think but he has a tangible affair, and he has that wet dream with her. It's a wet dream. He's in the goop. He wakes up. The sperm.
You had to go there.
Yes,
didn't you?
he has a wet dream.
No.
I think that's the tangible fantasy where he knows that he could possibly be with her, and he wants to have an affair with her. And at the end, when he sees that she's with that creepy guy, and then the kid won't stop crying, he kills it. And then I think he kills himself. And then you have his brain, which is that rock.
Which we saw at the beginning of the film.
And it has the guy in it. And I think that guy is like his moral compass, kind of steering him in the right direction. But then he can't. He's laying on the brakes, and he's got sparks coming up, and he's like, I can't control him anymore.
Give John a second.
That's
John
me.
talk a
Well,
little bit.
that's all you wanted my theory. That's my whole
Yeah.
theory.
When I first saw it, one of the things I was wondering is, so what's this man in the planet? What's his role? And the obvious thing is, he's a god, right? He's up there in space, in heaven, or whatever. And of course, the other thing, but he's all messed up looking, so maybe he's the devil. For a while, I was into thinking that he represented fate, kind of the machinery, where you can't, no matter what you do, you can't stop the machinery. And then another thing that I got into was the theory of this really being about addiction. So, seeing it back in the 80s, knowing it was made in the 70s, is it an acid trip where he blows his mind at the end? It's the little worm, represents drugs, the worm he puts in the cabinet, which kind of represents his head. He can't get away from that. I think more recently I see that as sex addiction is so he's, what's the thing that he's most driven to is going to the beautiful girl across the hall. So,
Yeah.
But more recently, there are a few things that all of these theories miss. So, first of all, David Lynch has said this is his most spiritual film. And so when we talk about fear of fatherhood, you go, here's the spirituality in that. Another thing is there are all these little details, just one after another. And so, why does he throw a coin in the pot before getting a little picture that's torn in half, and then he puts the two halves together wrong, then he looks at the back, which is blank for a long time. So what does that mean? And so that's where I found this literary text that actually has lines that correspond to all of these things. And so then you can look to, what are the themes in that text? Where does that lead? And it's literally like more than 70 associations that I found that were like that. So and then the other big question is, so why does he go to heaven at the end? So think about Henry. He's not a really likable character, right? He's whiny. You never come around anymore. Why don't you just stay there? So he's not somebody you look up to by any means. And then and he kills his kid. So now he's going to get rewarded by going to heaven. Like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Those are some of the things that get tied together with the theories in the books. So I've gone through a long path to get where I am. Oh, another thing is to mention, there's a book by Kenneth George Godwin, Eraserhead, was it Part 1, the David Lynch Files, something like that. And he theorized that it's all about sex. So he picked out all of the innuendo, and one of the coolest ones, one that I hadn't thought of until reading his stuff, is that the stage where the lady in the radiator is kind of like the womb. Yeah. And so here are these worms that come into it, and she's like a spermicide, right? She's knocking them out. So it's kind of a different way of looking at it. And at the time, David Lynch said that was his favorite reading of Eraserhead. But I got a theory there. My theory is that it was spot on, but didn't hit the bullseye. So it was all true, right? All these sexual innuendos are in there, But it's kind of like seeing Mork and Mindy and saying it's all about sex because there's innuendo in it, when it's really about a shit of water and, you know, a guy from space and stuff like this. So I think it was close. It was right enough, but not on the bullseye. So that's why David Lynch said, yeah, this is the best thing out there.
Interesting. There is a lot of sexual innuendos. The beginning scene with the hole.
Yeah, maybe I can bring up my theory.
Yeah.
I'm more on board with Bryan, that I do feel like it's about the fear of parenthood. And maybe that's just because it's personal to me, because having young children and experiencing that. But like, I think to me, the beginning of it with that man and the planet to me is, I go with you, John, about fate, but I feel like he's pushing the lever to do sperm. Like the sperm is coming out and basically impregnating Mary X. And I love that whole thing with the Rip picture, because to me, they maybe had broken up. Henry and Mary weren't together anymore. And it's like, Henry is forced to go back to the parents and hang out with them and get married because he has a baby now and stuff. And I think he's just dreading the whole thing. In Lynch's own experience, Jennifer Lynch was 3 years old when they were making Eraserhead, and then I mean they did it for 5 years, so she'd be 8. But when she was a baby, I guess she had like some club feet, and she had to be in a cast. She had some problems, and then how do you say it?
Calicky,
right?
Yeah.
So she would cry a lot. So I know just from without kids would have the problems, how annoying it is, and so I feel like he could at least relate when making this film to having difficult trouble with a baby and stuff. So there was definitely elements in there, and for me that whole part at the end about in heaven everything is fine, I don't think he's literally going to heaven. I feel like the peace, and like this to me this is horrible if this is the message, because you don't ever want to think that you should ever kill a child, but in some way he's kind of like he's free from this tortured monster.
That's what I got. Yeah, because she's singing that song. But yeah, it's his fantasy, and that's his fantasies of the whole film. So for him to be released and to him just to go to that fantasy, it is odd. Like John, you were saying, he's rewarded, but I think his brain, it's just where his brain goes. It's his soul or whatever, just goes to this fantasy.
And it's interesting, throughout the film, there are parts where he's just looking at the radiator. Like, he just wants, like, it's almost like he's zoning out. Like, I don't want to deal with anything, so I'm going to look at the radiator. And then he kind of creates this world, the stage. The stage and stuff. And, this is kind of, again, where Lynch has his stage, which he has throughout all his other works, that there's a stage and there's a singer. And,
and I noticed, I'm sure you guys noticed, the rug was the
chevron
was a rug in the lobby of his apartment.
Like the Red Room.
Like the Red Room. And it was interesting, that lobby, he always checked his mail, and then he gets that little box, and then the fairs start happening and everything. And I was wondering, I'm like, that mailbox was sort of like connection to the outside world, or maybe he was, hey, I'll check the mail and I might see the girl next door. Like, it was sort of like today's version of a cell phone.
Oh yeah, or communication that because he seems very lonely.
Yeah, he's very by himself, and maybe you always check. They gave us a flash of the mailbox for some reason in one part of the film, so I thought that was interesting.
So I was reading in Kenneth George Godwin's book that Lynch actually made that carpet himself.
Wow!
So it wasn't just something he happened to find, or that was something that was like super intentional. You can imagine how much work it would take. I imagine he got 2 different carpets and cut them and put them together, glued them down or something. So you had to be dedicated to wanting that pattern, and it's lived with him ever since. So to me, it's a zigzag more than a chevron. That's like it's like Purgatory. So if you think about the zigzag, it's never centered, right? It's a little to the left. It dithers. I'm going to the left. No, I'm going to the right. No, I'm going back to the left. So you're never at home. It's like, imagine a dot in the middle of a circle is kind of like, I'm at rest. And with this, it's unstable and never ending. And so, the Purgatory thing works for me. And so the lobby is kind of this in-between world. It's between his inner world of the apartment and the outside world. So it kind of works as that Purgatory in-between thing.
I like that. Yeah.
And John, are you into Twin Peaks?
Oh, very much so. Yeah. I'm no expert. I haven't seen it in fact, I didn't watch it back in the day. I wasn't watching much TV, and my parents were into like the Cosby Show and all the stuff that competed. So
and
it was only more recently that I saw it. Well, Cheers, the whole series, yeah.
What I was thinking about was the last episode of Twin Peaks where we're in the red room with Cooper and the little man says, "This is the waiting room." And to me, I mean, again, you never know if we're talking about this actual space of the red room is the waiting room, or if the lodge or the red room, the whole thing is the waiting room. But what I'm thinking about is the waiting room reminds me of what you're saying about Purgatory.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're neither on Earth nor at a final spot, and you're not at rest. This is as unstable as it gets. And by the way, that last episode of Twin Peaks has got to be the greatest episode of TV ever aired.
I agree.
Yeah, definitely.
It was so beyond anything that you would see any other place. There's nothing comparable.
That's so true. Yeah, I saw it when it aired, and I was like, I think in my room I had a TV, and I was like on the edge of my bed watching. Like, I've never seen anything like this.
That's your moment. That was your moment.
Yes,
right there. You know what it was.
This evolved from another of Lynch's film that he was working on. He was working on Garden Back, I think in the 1970s.
Garden Back.
And it had Henry and Mary in this film, and it was about adultery.
Oh, so kind of fitting.
It was a little bit fitting. I think it was only supposed to be a 20-minute short, and the thing is people wanted him to turn it into a feature, and they wanted to stretch it, add more dialogue, and I think he was very frustrated with that, and he kind of just threw it out there. But he took elements of that and brought it into Eraserhead, which...
That's cool.
Yeah.
And that's what it seems like he does a lot. And do you guys think the baby is what it is, what we see on screen, this creature, or do you think he's projecting that? I mean, what's your theory on the baby looking the way it does, and for what reason, I guess?
Yeah, well, one thing about it is that, yet another sexual innuendo, especially when he opens it up and, kind of looks like a male organ. So, so he's kind of, killing off the male sex drive in a way. And, but I think there's also some evil in that kid. So, back to the spiritual stuff. This is not what you want children to be. And you don't see any other kids or any other, in fact, the only other place that you see any life, like think about the stuff in Henry's room is all dead. The stuff outside is all dead. The only place you see any sort of life at all, in fact, the planet at the beginning is all dead. The only place you see any life at all is at Mary's place. Yeah, she has a little bit of life force and was able to give birth to this thing, but the whole world is so decayed. And in fact, that's another thing that you get from the Man and the Planet is that the universe has decayed. It's almost like we've had a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, and things are really messed up. And
the pencil factory did have a little boy, but you think that's not, the little boy should not be first picking up a head and bringing it to a factory.
Did that really happen?
Yeah.
I mean, like it happened, but I'm saying like metaphorically.
Right. That's true too.
You know what I'm saying? Because it didn't really happen. Yeah. Like,
are you saying people don't take heads and turn them into erasers?
Erasers.
I guess originally I think Jen Lynch was as a little girl was supposed to be in this film.
She wasn't.
I didn't.
I didn't
saw
see
her
her
in the credits, but I think there was a scene in it of her.
That was cut out. Yeah, unfortunately, he did the first airing. In fact, the one 40 years ago, come on the 19th. That first airing at Filmex. The film was something like a half an hour longer, and apparently it was just intolerable to watch. And Lynch had fallen in love with all the scenes. Put so much effort into them, he just couldn't cut them out. And then finally, after he got how difficult the film was, that's when he got out the razor blade and cut up the film, and that's when we got to our 89-minute version we see today.
And yeah, you're mentioning the baby and the sex drive thing. It does kind of make sense because, it's not quite clear, but it looks like that's what happened. The woman next door basically rejects him. She has sex. She's not comfortable with the baby in the room, and then she leaves and abandons him. And after that point, it seems Henry basically kills the baby, and it's kind of a combination of us saying that the baby is messing up his life, but it also seems to be. That it makes me, for some reason it makes me think of Lost Highway, that you could never have me, or that he can't he didn't his performance was not good enough for the woman next door and she moved on.
I like that Lost Highway connection. You can never have me. That's so true.
Well, to me, trying to divide what's real and what's not, the dividing line happens where he first goes into his mind goes into the radiator, and the woman starts stomping on the worms. And if you look at the way he's dressed and kind of the sequence when he lays back in bed, the woman next door comes over, and then there's the pencil factory scene. So all of those, to me, are dreams, nightmares, visions, however you want to call them. And then he finally wakes up after the, you remember that the pencil operator, he blows the dust off the table, the eraser dust. Then Henry wakes up just messed up, like, what did I just see?
Yeah. We should talk about that scene. He's on the stage where his fantasy would normally be, but all of a sudden it becomes a nightmare. And you have a plant bleeding, which, John, you mentioned all the plant life being dead. I wonder why the plant was bleeding. And then the baby's poking its head through him, which is like it's part of him, and his head pops off. And then his head going into the blood. I mean, what do you guys? What's the interpretation?
His head pops up, and then his head becomes the baby. Too,
yes,
right?
yeah.
I always wonder what's up with the plant that's next to his bed. I don't know if it's one and the same, but it's interesting. He's got like this mound of dirt next to his bed, and he's got this plant. And then at the end of the film, does the plant turn into a big head of the baby?
Yeah. I mean, well, it looks like the baby's attacking him or something weird. But you're right.
But
I
was trying to figure out, is it all connected? Is that plant the same plant in his dream?
Could be. If the fact that he can't even take care of a plant tells me how are you going to take care of a child?
Yeah.
In the painting,
no responsibility.
Yeah, in the painting is a picture of like a bomb,
atomic bomb. Yeah.
And
wow, I don't think I have noticed.
I noticed that right away. I was like, that's depressing.
Wow.
Why would you have that? But I mean, look at the time.
A mushroom cloud.
This is an industrial family, where maybe this was a fear back then, but he has got the dead plant.
Maybe that's what he feels like, though. Again, maybe that's his feeling of, like, life is over.
Yeah,
like, there's no life
it's depressing.
now.
Why should I have a baby in this world? We could all die.
Or just that the baby makes me feel like life is over.
So certainly where he's there in front of the plant, that's like judgment, right? So he's, because he's standing behind that curtain thing, almost like he's in the witness box. And so, it's kind of this blood and judgment thing with the plant as his judge. And then the head comes off, which is, kind of like being decapitated, So off with his head. And then if you think about what happens after judgment, here's the spiritual thing again. He doesn't ascend, he goes down. So in the dream, he goes down into the netherworld. So in other words, he's damned. In his dream right there.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
So David Lynch also really likes Kafka. Like he was a big fan of Kafka. Metamorphosis, the whole idea of so I don't know, in some way he seems to be metamorphing, Henry seems to be metamorphing into the baby.
Yeah, I mean, they're part of each other.
Yeah. I mean, they clearly are, right? The baby is a part of him. That's so true.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think Gardenback, you mentioned earlier, I think that was even more tied to metamorphosis.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, I think it had to do with an insect in the attic, but you're right. It was more of, I don't know if eventually that Henry was turning into the bug or insect, but you're right. I think there was more of a connection.
Leading into the next scene, the whole Eraserhead, I mean, do you guys feel does that scene work for you guys? Like, it is odd to be where it is, and it does give a meaning to the name. And I kind of see the whole, I understand what the metaphor is, but I mean, what do you guys think about that scene being there?
It's odd.
It is odd, right?
I mean, so odd. I don't know.
So for me, I had the same reaction that it was really out of place, that it was almost like you're giving this whole scene just about a pun. He's a Eraserhead, and now you're showing that there's erasers in his head, so it explains the title. So it seemed kind of cheap and out of place to me. But more recently, having gone through the analysis, seeing the literature and so forth, I in some ways it's part of a hero's journey, believe it or not. So when his head is judged, and then the guy does the erasing with it, and he says
it's okay.
It's almost like he passed the test. That at that point, this, like, he's the one. He's the Eraserhead. And so you can look at this through a whole hero's journey thing, and he fits it right. I was reading this stuff about how, here are the 10 things to know if you're, a superhero. and some of it is like technology starts acting weird around you, like the lights start buzzing. You're kind of a loser before you know what your powers are. You see visions, and so it's like, well, it was like eight of the 10 things on the checklist all work for Henry. So, and this is the only reason for me to see that, does Henry actually follow the hero's journey of someone who's lost, and then it turns out to be, the one.
Never would think of Henry as a hero. If anything,
anti-hero.
I don't even know if he's an anti-hero. He seems a jerk.
A
he
schlub.
Seems selfish.
He's a schlubby guy.
Like, he killed his baby. Like, what the?
Yeah.
Like, let's go back to you, Bryon. What if there is no baby? What if it's really him dealing with relationships, and if it's all in his head, and he's trying to.
Yeah.
Work
I mean, I do believe there is a baby. I just don't believe it looks like that. I think that's his projection onto the baby.
Yeah.
Like, the baby has a lot of problems because it's premature and he doesn't have his girlfriend anymore. I think he's projecting this ugliness onto the baby, so he's not connecting to it. He's not gonna love it because it's probably easier for him to kill it if he has no emotional connection to it. Like, if he loved it, he wouldn't kill it, obviously. He had no love for this baby. What if we take the context of the baby didn't exist at all? And but what if this was just a metaphor for him?
For not being able to connect.
He lost he lost his girlfriend because he couldn't perform. He had anxiety. All he wanted to do was fantasize about the next door lady. He couldn't. Maybe he was an adulterer. Maybe he just wanted to cheat, and that's the only thing he liked. And she just got sick of it and left him. Maybe this make-believe thing torments him.
Yes, the monster.
Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe they didn't have the baby. Maybe the baby, something happened, and the baby, they had a miscarriage. And maybe this baby represents that miscarriage, and it's haunting him that he couldn't have that baby.
Right.
Through the whole film.
Yeah.
I don't know, because there's nobody else there but him.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. So many things.
Yeah, what I've seen from Lynch is that he's the master connector, right? He's the kind of person who, if he sees something or reads something, he's going to make like a 10-dimensional model of spider webs connecting stuff together. So, and when he does that, it allows like many readings rather than one. I imagine if we were to ask him what it meant, he could describe it on many points of view. He could tell us 20 different stories, depending on which level of the spider web he was on.
I'd love to talk maybe about the crew and cast a little bit, but I really think that Kathryn Coulson is the unsung hero of Eraserhead. I mean, so she was supposed to be a nurse in the film, but they had to cut that piece out. She was, she did, I think, what did she do? She was assistant. I think she was assistant director, but she helped out with the camera and she did a lot of the background stuff. But she made grilled cheeses. She would help out every way she can.
Craft services, yeah.
So she got those worms. I guess are actually umbilical cords. They're real umbilical cords. She would go.
Oh my God.
She would go to the hospital and said, "We're doing a film, and we would like to get some." And they would actually give it. Say, as long as you're not misusing them. So
wow.
She doesn't say, "Oh, I'm throwing it against the wall" or something. But I don't know. She was a pretty amazing woman.
To me, Kathryn Coulson is an absolutely. She's the glue. Like David Lynch had the motivation and the charisma to pull everything together, but to get through all 5 years, she was like, the mom. She was the one who made sure everyone was fed and taken care of, and I think kept a positive attitude. That can-do attitude. So. I've got a really soft spot in my heart for her. She's just wonderful.
The first time was Charlotte Stewart did the hair for Jack Nance, and then after that, at the time Jack Nance was married to Kathryn Coulson.
Oh yeah.
But she was always the one. They had a hairdresser, but to stylize it, it was always Kathryn Coulson who was doing that. So that's kind of neat. And I think she was joking in an interview that's what split up their marriage. That her having to do his hair every day. I'm sure it was other things, but
yeah, I love his hair. It's Kramer-esque.
And they were saying at the time it was like really far out, and like nobody had their hair like that. But years later, that was like it was a style, not because of Eraserhead, but people. Did that.
I think the cast was amazing. I think Jack Nance.
Yeah.
He did so much with just his expressions
and his movement and how
and I think it's a testament to what a great actor he is. And honestly, I never knew what a great actor he was until seeing this. Like, I've seen him in small, Twin Peaks and everything, and I'm like, oh, he's a good actor.
Yeah, Pete Martell there, right?
But you see this, and it's he carries the film, and you're like, wow, you did such a great job.
What's funny is, it took 4 or 5 years to do, and so there was like one scene where like he was gonna open a door, and then he gets on the other side, and I think it was like at least a year and a half later before he opened the door. So I think there was always concern of like, is he aging in this film? Like, because it was took so long to actually finish.
Took a year to open the door.
Yeah.
One truth with all the actors is there's never a moment where they're not believable. That at every moment, that's Henry. That's not Jack Nance. That's Henry there. And same thing for all the characters. There's never a time when you go, oh, that's a good actor. No, that's the character.
Right.
Yeah.
And you think of Charlotte Stewart, who played a teacher on Little House on the Prairie, and at the same time she's doing Little House on the Prairie, she's making Eraserhead, and what very different characters they are, from a sweet teacher to, I don't know, a crazy wife.
Yeah, and that scene when she's with her parents, when they ask him, what do you do? What are you doing? I'm on vacation. And then, what do you do? And then she goes into this like fit.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you guys think about that? What was your I'm like, oh, does she have something like she's like a mental thing?
Yeah, to me, it's a double entendre. Like, she said, so what do you do? It was like on vacation. She said, what did you do? And of course, there's the sexual thing of, I got your daughter pregnant.
Gotcha.
Right.
That makes sense. And that triggered something where she doesn't want to talk about it. It's uncomfortable. I mean, it's uncomfortable. You're with your parents, your boyfriend, and you're gonna talk about you're having a baby, and maybe you know what I'm saying. I mean, and the mom says,
"You and Mary have sexual intercourse."
That line, when I first saw it, back in the day, was just like my jaw just dropped. It was like, I couldn't imagine being in somebody's house and their parents asked me that. It's like, how do you even respond?
Mary?
Yeah, then she goes after him and starts kissing his neck and stuff. It's like, okay, over the top.
She's condemning him, but then she kind of like is turned on by it too.
Yeah.
And then Mary walks in and says, "Mom, like, this again?"
Not again.
Not again. Yeah, and the whole family's bizarre, and maybe he just sees his future like, I will be like that dad. I'll be excited about chicken in 20 years when I'm living with the entire family.
Yes.
Because this is a time when a generation, that you have the grandma living with the parents. And this is something that was very common back then.
And I love the scene where the grandmother just has the salad and they have to come and help her stir the salad. I mean, she's not doing anything, but
just have a cigarette in her mouth.
And of course, his previous film was the grandmother, who was a loving character. And here the grandmother is just drained of life. Just completely drained.
Everybody's drained of life in this. It's the world. In the industrial world, it just feels like everybody's just kind of, life is, like, what are you doing tonight? I don't know. Like, it's just that kind of vibe everybody's got, and
totally.
drab and muddy. And it reminded me of Elephant Man, like, industrial.
Definitely.
And I'm like, I wonder if they filmed a lot of the same stuff in the same area.
Mel Brooks actually decided he wanted David Lynch to direct Elephant Man because of Eraserhead. And you kind of think, boy, that's such a strange reason to do it. But you're right. Because of that industrial feel, I think that he saw something in that and said, you know what, this would be a good fit for Elephant Man.
And I think it was.
Yeah, and I think it was that and the fact that he could treat Henry, this outsider character, so tenderly that I think that was the other thing that convinced him, that he could really tell the story.
Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing, that the Elephant Man and Henry have a lot in common. Yeah, I can definitely see that.
And the funny thing is, the baby in some ways is like the Elephant Man. Even though the baby can't talk, I mean, it seems like here we have this deformed character.
Helpless character. But controls Henry, cries conveniently when he wants to sneak out, mocks him. And I kind of feel like it is doing it on purpose. or maybe he sees it that way.
Yes,
You know,
probably
he sees it that way.
He's projecting onto
Yeah,
the
he's
baby.
projecting onto the baby,
Right.
definitely.
It's funny this. So I guess like the treatment was originally like 21 pages, and he took those 21 pages and made this film out of that. And I
Wow.
always wondered, like, did it just keep on growing? Like, I feel like Lynch's style. We've talked about this before, Brian, where he thinks about something and like it was never intended to go that way, but it's like, oh, this is a happy accident, and now I'm going to add this to it. And like to have a film that went for almost 5 years, you kind of wonder if like he started with some ideas and just kept on going with it. And it's like, okay, now we're going to go to the pencil factory and stuff.
So one of the things I did when trying to find the connections between the literary text and Eraserhead, so of course I had downloaded the text, and so I could search it, and I wrote up a screenplay, using traditional Hollywood screenplay techniques of the film. So I just watch and pause, and got it all down. And put more in my screenplay than you ever would in a real one. Because, the director doesn't want the screenwriter to tell him how to light it or what prompts to use. So I included all those details so that I could refer to it. And my script was only like 35 pages, 40 pages or something like that.
Wow.
So it's a sparse film. There's not much dialogue. And so, and the scenes are long. And so there's, that is definitely a movie where 1 minute per page, that formula doesn't work. The longer thing was just thinking about, reading the other text that it's related to, which is a long text. And then, and then you think about, you find a line, you go, wait, does this relate? And you go back to the other one. And so it was a lot of searching. And then it was also a lot of scene would come to me, and I'd have to think of what are all the synonyms for that thing or that event, and then I'd go to the other text and start typing in those synonyms to see what would come up to find out if there was any relationship. So, so it really took some scouring. But here's the key about it: is if the film or if the piece of text was like Alice in Wonderland, it wouldn't work, right? Because Alice follows the rabbit down the hole, right? And so if you film that, then you're just filming Alice in Wonderland. But the stuff has to be metaphorical. So he looked at me like a porcupine on roller skates or something. Then people don't remember those little metaphorical lines in detail, and so you put all those metaphors together in concrete terms on film, and so that's kind of how it works. It's you find all those metaphors, and you go, oh my goodness, this metaphor that was just a throwaway line and interesting, colorful line in the other text, David Lynch put on film in Eraserhead. And so here's an interesting thing: is that true for his other films? Is there a text out there where you go, oh my goodness, this is well? And actually, I know there are things from this text that are in at least 3 of his other films. There are multiple times in the text that it mentions the owls. Most of the cases, owls are related to death. They make the sound, like the sound of the bell when someone dies. But also there's an owl who is a person who is transformed into an owl. So the owls are not what they seem.
Nice. So, Jon, can you share more about your background? I love your drawing style for this graphic novel, The Keys to Eraserhead. Can you share more your background?
I just doodled as a kid. I never really, studied art or anything. I didn't study literature either. But when I found this connection and saw how rich it was, I couldn't just write some thick academic paper. That you've read stuff that analysis papers where they're just hard to stomach. And so I wanted something that kept the dreamlike feel of the movie. And so that's why I went to the graphic novel style. So I draw a scene from the film, and it allows me to change the camera angle, to change the lighting, to erase things from the background so you focus on the thing I want you to focus on. And, had I used like screenshots, you wouldn't necessarily get that focus that I was able to do with the drawings. Now I keep the drawings in kind of a similar perspective as a film frame, and so I try and make it kind of hypnotic, so you'll forget about the art and just remember the scenes in the movie rather than anything else.
Interesting. That's cool. So, do you think you'll now look at other David Lynch films and maybe try to analyze them more, other literature, other works?
Yeah, definitely. So, now that I know this particular author, and here's another thing that I did. I read two of the closest related works from this same author and said, am I just grasping at straws? Am I doing the conspiracy theory thing where, hey, everything this guy writes is so colorful that you can find a lot? No, there was just no resonance from these two most closely related works, just none at all. So it was like, yeah, I did. So I did the scientific test to see if I was, just grasping at straws. And but I wouldn't be surprised if there are things, like, oh gosh, just look at, check out the lines from the Log Lady in They're like poetry, and especially the lines that David Lynch added later. I guess when he went to Bravo, he added some introductory lines.
From the Log Lady intros. Yeah.
If you read those are totally like poetry.
Definitely.
I'm wondering if those aren't inspired from other poetry, other literature, or something. That they're wonderful.
They are. I agree. That is something.
I can't wait to watch it again with just hearing yours and John's theories on it.
And you got to get John's graphic novel.
Yes, I can't wait to read it, John. Right. I'm very excited.
I will say, so John, you were kind enough to share it with me, and I'm not going to give any secrets away, but it really blew my mind. And it was one of those things you blew my mind that I kind of get a headache, and it's like, oh boy, it's like I need to now relook at this whole thing. It's like I commend you for being able to look at the work that you found and connect it to Eraserhead. I commend you on doing that.
Yeah, I get the feeling that with so many examples that it was a real connection, or did it seem like, I don't know, it's kind of a reach?
I could see connections. It's one of those things where I never would have thought about that. And I don't even have a background in some of that stuff, so I almost feel like I need to relook at that stuff and really understand it better. You made great connections. I mean, you made some really cool connections. And I don't see how anybody would ever see this. I mean, I'm impressed that you were able to connect the dots.
Crack the code.
And some of the things are just like on the nose. You read about, like there are two lines that are specifically about sticking up hair. There's a single line that talks about, the context would indicate transparency. And of course, Henry's transparent in the beginning. It talks about sticking up hair. It talks about eyes that are wide, like circles. And so Henry doesn't blink in that scene. His eyes are just as wide as can be. It mentions stars. You get stars in the background, and it mentions pens. And so he's got pens in his pocket.
Wow.
So in one line, all those things exist. And then you look at the stuff on the screen, and you go, well, there it is on the screen.
Amazing.
Yeah. I'm excited to read this.
And there's a second line that talks about hair standing on end as well. So it's not the only one.
You made a lot of connections. I mean, you found a lot of connections. I mean, I do love that you like things like, why did this happen? And why did this happen? Things that seemed very random in the film that you were able to connect to other work, which it's very impressive.
Thanks.
Was the Bible one of them?
And I think the Bible, there's part of the Bible is in there, and that talks to, Lynch said many times this is his most spiritual work. And so, all the analysis that you read, about fear or sex or something, there's no spiritual connection there. And so, that was part of my curiosity is, so where's the spiritual? And he even says, I picked up the Bible and I read this line. I said, yeah, that's it. And I closed the Bible and put it down. So that was there for him, but that doesn't come through in most of the analysis that I've read.
Interesting.
That's awesome. So so tell people, how can they get your graphic novel?
Yeah, so go to keytoeraserhead.com. That's KDY, then the number 2, eraserhead.com. An order button there, an order page, and it tells you about the book, and then you can find the links to Amazon or to the iBook store. And $5.95 is what I'm asking, and available for pre-order and will ship on March 19th, 40th anniversary of Eraserhead.
Nice.
40th anniversary. Well, you got perfect timing.
I'm ordering it today.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you,
Very
John.
good.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
And that was our Eraserhead show.
Great show.
It was awesome.
You got to check out that graphic novel there.
Once we leave, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna buy it, and
Yeah.
I recommend everybody else do the same.
Keys to Eraserhead. John makes a really good argument, but it's still kind of like, I never would have gone there. I never would have put the two together.
And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, so he did a lot of work on this. It's just cool to check out.
And to hear you, who is a diehard, and I'm sure you've seen Eraserhead countless times.
Countless times.
To have you say, I would have never thought to go there, says something
Right.
to what he is bringing to the table.
Yeah, and he uses Lynch to make his argument too, which is kind of cool. That like Lynch has said some things that makes him go clues that kind of connect that. Where I never would. It seems far left and out there, but it's like, oh yeah, I can see that, and I can see where he draws the connections.
Ben, before we go, I got quick housekeeping.
Housekeeping.
So, a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, I said, hey, it'd be awesome if we hit 400 on the old Facebook like page.
They would, but your hope was before the new
Season
series
3.
came. Yeah, so you still got a few weeks to do that.
Well, we did it.
Yay!
Yay!
Congratulations.
So my new goal is 450.
450. All right,
Yeah,
you got
yeah.
a few weeks.
If we can do 450 before season 3, at the time of this, a little over 400. So a thank you to everybody who's liking us on
Thank you,
Facebook.
community. That's awesome.
And, it's a great source of information. We share other Twin Peaks podcasts and resources, and including our own. So thank you. So stay with us on that and Twitter. We got Twitter going, and Twitter's ramping up.
Ramp it up. Over 10,000. That's wonderful.
And I'm going to announce this now. We do have a YouTube page, Twin Peaks Unwrapped, on the old YouTube. Now, you might say, well, what the hell do you do on the YouTube page? We had no idea what to do with our YouTube page.
I was going to work on an animated version of our podcast.
Which you can see. It's up there.
The first one.
The first
it was
one.
Really, I think it's our first 10-minute introduction just to test it out.
Yeah,
just for fun.
just for
I don't
fun.
know if I have time.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
I can't even get our show out. Never mind.
You do a great job, Ben. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. The anime thing, check that out. Also, we have another thing on there. It's kind of special. It's the TV pilot for Mulholland Drive. Now, the interesting thing about that is if you live in the U.S., guess what? You can't watch it. If you live outside the U.S., not Germany, you can watch it. I left it up there for the folks who could watch it, and copyright laws prevent people from the U.S. and Germany to watch it. And I'm sure there's workarounds. So that's up there. So I was like, what can we do special on the YouTube channel? Just something different, just to get people to know, hey, we do have a YouTube channel. We're going to do stuff with it eventually. Starting April 11th, we are going to each day, we will repost our journey, my journey through Twin Peaks with you.
Yes.
From seasons 1 to season 2, including the books, including Joel Bacco. Joel Bacco is going to be on 4 of the episodes.
His specials.
Yeah. So each day I will be posting and sharing this on Facebook, and I'm sure maybe even Twitter.
Definitely.
Where you can go on YouTube and re-listen to these episodes one a day leading up to season 3. Every day will be something, and the final day will be the day before season 3.
Awesome.
So this will be starting April 11th. I mean, if you listen to our podcast, it's not going to be anything new, but it might reach a different audience.
Right.
And I think that's why we're going to do this.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think there's probably some people who haven't listened to some of our early stuff.
You can re-listen to it.
Right.
It's a great way.
Forgive us. We make our mistakes.
Yeah, we do.
But it's all good.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a good way to refresh your memory.
Yeah, I
before
can't wait.
season
That's
3.
awesome.
You could even watch the episode that day, starting April 11th, and listen to our show.
Right.
I mean, whatever you want to do. I think it'd be kind of cool, though.
And it's really a great journey. It was fun to watch you discover Twin Peaks for the first time. It was fun to see you find out who killed Laura Palmer. It was a lot of good times.
There's a lot of great stuff, and
Great moments.
I re-listened to some stuff, and there's some cool nuggets in there.
My favorite too is that your theories, the Bryon theories. You have some good theories
I
about
do.
you got to listen to those. I wish we had time. It would be great to have a whole edit
Supercut of my theories.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your haunted houses. And
Dale Cooper being the killer, that he came in to solve the crime, but he's actually the killer.
I love it.
You know?
It's good.
Yeah, it's great. So we'll be doing that. And other than that, you can join us on Facebook, the Twitter, send us an email, twinpeaksunwrapped@gmail.com.
And don't forget that, iTunes. Really, we need those 5 stars and your reviews. They're so important, and they're critical to making this show, that to let other people know about this show. And really, it gets us excited to want to go out there and get some new interviews. And why don't we promote it? Why don't we say what's going to happen next week? We are going to do...
Ooh, we're going to have a big one, Ben.
Yeah, what we're going to have... We're going to continue about Eraserhead, and we're going to have... Judith Roberts, who played the beautiful girl across the hall. So it would be wonderful to have her tell us about Lynch and working on Eraserhead. And I think we'll probably do some interviews from the past just to make it a full show on Eraserhead and some of the actors that were involved in it.
It's going to be very cool.
It's awesome. But, what excites us and wants us to keep on reaching out and trying to get new special guests is those comments and your feedback on iTunes, on Facebook, on Twitter, all over. But the iTunes is so important because that's where people decide. They check out the reviews. They see how many stars, and that's how they decide to even check us out. So if you're listening and you haven't done a review yet on iTunes, please take 5 minutes and do that. That means so much to us.
Definitely. And second goal, other than hitting 450 on Facebook, is to get us or another Twin Peaks podcast that you might like better than us, which I don't know how that's possible, if we can hit the top 50 in the arts and entertainment of iTunes.
Get Diane's podcast there to hit that. Or
any of those guys. You see the trends of podcasts when a show's popular?
Right.
And I want to see Twin Peaks up there.
Oh,
I haven't seen any Twin Peaks up there.
We got a few months to go.
I know, but come on, we need it now.
All right, Bryon, it's time to go.
Yeah, we're out of here.
And Bryon, in heaven, everything is fine.
Remember when Jan was about 3, she would come over and ask if she could play with the baby, and you'd say, yeah, but don't touch it?
Spike has a special place in my heart, very definitely. Whether it's because of my own feelings of Spike sort of representing the nightmare my father thought parenthood would be at that point, or who knows, but just I think there's a very sort of sweet elephant man type quality to the baby.